Good afternoon. This is Ron Brown. It's Friday afternoon, the 17th of June, 2022. We're closing out a hellish week in the stock market. We're getting somewhat of a bounce today. It's triple witching options expiration. And the markets are probably getting a boost by falling oil prices, and gasoline prices have come down some this week also. That is in the commodity market. Anyway, this is my standard risk disclaimer. Once again, any stock, index, or ETF mentioned in this presentation is not a recommendation to buy or sell. All trading strategies are used at your own risk. If you like any of this, what you see here, and if you're not an HGSI user, you can get a free 30-day trial by going to hygrostock.com, order WP trial ASP, or just go to the website and you'll find the link to the trial. And you'll also get a free 30-day or free month of access to my Insider Club and my files and my spreadsheets. And those spreadsheets are based upon risk control and now, this week I'm going to start in or with my major markets ETFs folder. It's located in the market analysis user groups. If you have my file, just open that up and it's folder number 2. I can see that I have a filter on, but I'll take care of that by going to the warehouse and then bring the quick pick up and go to the intraday scan. And what this does is it scans on stocks, and they're sorted with the raw combo, which is based upon the intraday price change and the intraday range. And if you look across here, you'll see that there are several of the ARC funds in here. They've been the poorest, some of the poorest performers this week, but today when we're getting a bounce, it's options expiration day and the market is totally oversold, so you have to expect a bounce. But what I want to do is I want to take a look at some general broader market funds here. And first of all, I'll start with the total market ETF of Vanguard, the VTI. Make this large so we can see it. And you can see that I'm in here. This is a daily chart. If I click on my alternate key and the W, this is the weekly chart. This is the way it looked this week. This is last week, so you can see how brutal this market has been. I'm going to flip it back to a daily chart, and what we have here is what's called an inside day on this candle, because the body of this is inside the prior day. So it's stopping, but one thing that I want to point out is compare today's volume and projected volume. That little magenta nub there is the projected volume by the time the market closes. Compare that to yesterday's volume and some of these other volume days. So it's stopping. Will it hold? I have no idea. But if you draw a horizontal line across here approximately, that is resistance, and it's going to have to plow through there to form a higher high and a higher low before it starts going back up. But what I wanted to point out here is really the lack of volume. Now let's look at the QQQ, and you can see a pretty similar pattern here, and once again volume is low. But by the time the market closes, this could change because it's triple witching options expiration, and the volume probably will spike up considerably before the market closes. Now I want to do one more. Let's look at the SPY, which is a proxy for the S&P 500. You can see there's a low volume test here. Look how low this volume is, and that's indicated over here also. The problem is we're going into a 3-day weekend with Juneteenth on Monday. So I'm assuming a lot of traders don't want to carry risk into a 3-day weekend. Now, something that's really helping us today, and I believe that I'm just observing this and saying this, is oil has dropped considerably. This is just today, and we're down 483. It was much lower. And if I look up here, here's gasoline, UGA. You can see that it's dropped considerably this week. Here's the weekly chart and the daily chart. It was down here around $67. Buyers came back in to prop it up, and volume is heavy here. By the way, this chart is down here in my number 10 folder. I called it Contextual Intrinsic Setup Risk Charts. And what I'm looking at is 2A intraday statistics. I like to see what's going on with price and volume. Here's the price, here's the volume, which translates to demand and supply. There was very little demand early in the day and a lot of supply, but you can see the demand has come back in on volume. Another thing I like to look at is a UVXY, which is the Ultra VIX. And you can see that it's falling today. Look how it's spurted up here over the past several days. Here's a weekly chart right here, and here's this week. I'm going to go up here, just look at, let's look at ARKK, which is an ETF, a Cathie Woods ETF. You can see what has happened with this. Let's go to the weekly chart and zoom out. It has, oh, I'm sorry, that's the wrong one. That's ARKX. I'm looking for ARKK. It's right here. And this was up in the $160 range before this correction started, and look where it is now, clear down around $35. This has been such a brutal correction for these tech stocks and for people who held, just writing it all the way down. I'm going to go back to the weekly version here. I'm just going to open up this tool right here. I'm going to drag it from here down. I'll put it on the low. And if you look down here, over 64 weeks, it's down 77.9% or 80%. Now, if I take this, if I draw this horizontal line here and then go back down to the low and draw this up to the horizontal line, it tells me how far I'll have to come back to get even with this. Let's make this a red arrow. Whoops. 350%. You need a 350% gain to just break even from the top. So this is a good illustration of why when something starts going against you, you just have to get out at some point. Okay. I'm going to clear all the annotations, get rid of this, and go back to a daily chart with the alternate D key. And I think that's all the time I want to spend on the major market ETFs. One thing I will look at, and I'll go up to the major markets folder here. I want to, here's what I'm looking for. I'm in my Major Markets Plus folder. I want to look at the Bitcoin Investment Trust. And you can see what's happened to this. Bitcoin is trying to hold above 20,000. It's had a brutal week. I'm just going to drag it over from my other screen to show you what I mean. This is the Bitcoin futures. It is trying desperately to hold on to the 20,000 level, down from 48,000 in this view, but it was higher. It was in the 60s at one time. And the hype around cryptos has been unbelievable, but it's been a horrible investment for those who got in late. I shouldn't even call it an investment because it's pure speculation based upon hype, as far as I'm concerned, the greater fool theory, and a lot of people have been getting hurt. Now, if you've been reading any of the crypto news, there are analysts out there saying that this is going to be $100,000 by the end of 2022. Well, to me, it looks like it's going in the wrong direction. Let's see if I have here we go. This is a weekly chart. And you can see where it was. It was almost $70,000, and now it's $20,495. Remember, this was supposed to be a safe haven during inflationary times, or at least that was part of the selling point, and obviously it didn't work out. It's in danger of falling back to its base clear down here at $10,000. It'll be interesting to see if the real panic sets in, if this is supported, if 20,000 is broken, or if it just continues to fall. Back to the daily chart. There have been many attempted rallies in this, and I'm going to go to a 78-minute chart. You can see back here a few days ago it got down to this level. They rallied it up to almost 23,000, and then it failed almost immediately. But support is right in this area, around 20,000. Okay, I want to get back to HGSI. And what I want to do is go into the industries, click on this, and select Rebuild Indexes and Groups. It's taking the real-time quotes, or the 5 quotes that are updated every 5 minutes in thinkorswim, and it's building the indexes, and we're going to get a feel for where the strength is. So I'll just click through, and now I have to go down to another set of scans. I'm going to my top-down scorecard views for HGSI index analysis, and you can see that today the cruise lines are leading, up 8.2%, followed by renewable energy, other hardware, and so on. Now, if you look down here and see that I'm going to click on HGSI indexes up today, there's 127 up and 47 down. And you can see that one of the indexes that is down the most is exploration and production, oil. I showed you the oil chart. The groups have been falling, and they've been hit pretty hard this week. Look at this right here. Let me zoom in on that, and you can see what's happened with this exploration index. Now, this index was a leading index for months. You can see this. There was a pullback, a double bottom, and then for quite some time it just kept going up, along with oil prices and gasoline prices. But that run seems to be over for now. Okay, now we know that the market's doing much better today. Here's another thing that I look at. I'll go into all securities, and then down here under, we'll close this up. I have folder number 13. It's called Intraday Market Momentum. This is up and down. It measures both up and down, and then I'll bring my spectrum analyzer up, and it gives me an immediate read on the advancing issues versus declining issues of stocks in industry groups. So this is today. Now I have a snagit here. This is from yesterday about this same time. Let's just do a little comparison here. This was an unbelievably weak day yesterday. This was at 3:29 p.m. Eastern Time, so about the same time, a little bit 20 minutes earlier than right now. But you can see what has happened with this market from day to day. This was overwhelmingly negative, 3,500 down, 266 up, and now we see 2703 up, 1057 down. So we are getting a bounce. We'll see what happens next week. I'll minimize this and let's just take a look here. I'm going to go into my daily prospecting scans, and I just want to see what the most active list looks like. Once again, I'm sorted on an intraday combo. Here's a stock that is up 23.65% today on very heavy volume. Now this scan, I would have picked this up much earlier. Here is a stock that sold off hard, and you can see that there are buyers stepping back into it. But these are some of the most active stocks. If you look over here at the comparison between the 20 and the 90-day, these percentages are comparing the averaged 20-day volume and 90-day volume to the current day's volume, and you can see that there's some really heavy buying on some of these stocks. Let's take a look at this one right here. Huge sell-off. Well, it's a very inexpensive stock, but the percentage gain is tremendous. Here's what I like to do during the day. I'll do this occasionally. I'll go into my designer and I will select Rebuild User Smart Groups. And what this is doing, it's rebuilding groups based upon filters that I've created over the years and months, and it's going to give me a really good read on where the action is today. Now I've got several smart groups. It takes about 30 seconds normally to do this. Probably takes a little bit longer because I'm talking. But once this finishes, and it's finishing up right now, might be up to 45 seconds. Okay, let's go into this and into my user smart groups. Now under this folder, this is a folder that I modify and make changes all the time. By the way, there are some new low pivot scans in here, and nothing's going to show up on these because this requires that the industry group be up 1 in 5 days, and there are none. But there are some low pivot scans in here, end of day. I'll show you something else before I finish this video. But what I'm looking for is up here under my intraday market indicators, and these folders, stocks and groups moving up and down intraday. It pulls up 100 stocks either up or down. Top 100 here. Here's in the $1 to $15 range. But I'll just remove my filter, go in here, and sort on the industry percentage price change. Remember, cruise lines were up the most today. What is leading the cruise line index? Well, these three. Carnival, two Carnivals and a Norwegian up 9.7, over 9%, and the Caribbean, Royal Caribbean is up 5.4. But just look at these stocks. I mean, yeah, there's bottom fishers going in there, but the trends are clearly down. All right for a day trade, but I wouldn't plan on these reversing and heading right back up. But on days like this, you're going to find people looking for bargains, or perceived bargains, I should say. Okay, now the next group, I believe renewable energy equipment is one of the groups. Let's look at this. Here's an interesting one, Plug Power. It's been holding pretty steady here at support over the past several days. That might be one to look at on Tuesday, see if it's still holding. Here is Sunrun. It pretty much held the line here also. Airlines are up today. I'm sorted on industry groups here. Let's Just go down the list here, and you can see that every one of these stocks are up today. If you're looking for day trades, this is really a good way to do it early in the day. You rebuild the groups first, you see which groups are moving, and then you come in and rebuild the smart groups and get a feel for what's going on. Now let's go down. It's updating right now. And I want the 1 to 15 groups, and you can see that those same 3 stocks are included in here, because what are the prices? Wow, I didn't realize the prices had gotten this low. Well, the market just closed. I'll take a look at it in a few minutes, but before I leave here, I just want to point out that there are both up and down stocks. You can see the groups that are down. Here's that exploration and production group. These stocks are really getting hit hard today. But it's just a quick way to get a read on the market. And let's go back to these stocks that are up, and I'm going to show you something that I've been working on. I'll put these in the add-on tomorrow. I want you to delete your add-on and then reinstall it, because I've made some changes on these pivots. So these are bullish low pivots. Remember, all of these stocks are up for the day. What's a low pivot? I've made some changes on the filter. I've talked about the low pivots before, but what we're looking for is a relatively safe entry. So let's just look at this. And I'll zoom in on this. What it does is it finds stocks whose high is lower than the prior day's high and whose low is lower than the prior day's low. And we had a stopping volume on this. Now, this was a confirmed pivot today when this level, I should have drawn a little bit higher, was taken out. And that would have been a good low risk entry in a stock that's trending down. There was news on ZipRecruiter today. Let's look at another stock. You can see that the high is lower than this high and the low is lower than this low. Here's your pivot. Early buy, cheater buy is right here. Confirmed buy would be if this were taken out, and it looks like it's stalled right there. Here's a pivot, and here's a confirmed buy. Pivot, this is not a confirmed buy. There's a cheater buy at the prior day's high, though. Anyway, I'm not going to go through all these. I'll make a video on all of these, but I've done several of them, and I've altered this to make the low pivots much truer than they were before. In other words, what do we have? We only have one stock here that's up for today. This one, the fan was still up. It may not look like it, but the fan was still in position. Now let me go back to this one here. Here's your low pivot. Once again, this high is lower than this high. This low is obviously lower than this low. And then this would have been a confirmed buy right in there. Cheater buy right there. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up in a minute here. Let's take a look at the SPY. Volume remained light on that. How about the Qs? Volume remained light, so we need to go in and look at the... Okay, this is the true volume here. You can see what happened. It's not reflected in the Qs or the SPY, but this is overall. At options expiration, all these options are expire and they have to be settled, and that's why you see these huge volume spikes at the end of the day. Look at this on the New York Stock Exchange. Huge volume. That is because it's triple witching options expiration. Okay, I want to locate my main page. And let's see how the markets closed. Okay, the comp closed up 152. This is a 78-minute chart. Opening gap, traded down, and then it kind of worked its way a little bit higher, then sold off a little bit at the end of the day. Okay, let's... Crude regained, this is a 78-minute chart, regained some of its losses towards the end. And here's the S&P futures, or the S&P 500. It was only up 0.22%. The 600 is up 0.70. The 400, the mid cap's up 0.90. That comp was up 1.43. The heading back into the speculative stocks or trying to bargain hunt, that was the best performer of the day. That's it. There's really not much more to say. It's been brutal. The market's been brutal, and we just have to wait and see what happens. Here's the weekly chart. You can see what's happened. It's been extremely painful. Let me do this. I said I was leaving, but I want to show you. Okay, I don't want that. Got a little bit confused with my charts. Okay, what we have here, and I'm going to look at the comp. There's no volume on here, but that's all right. This is a monthly chart. So you can see that there was a low established here, then a lower low there on this one, but it bounced back up, and then finally on this one, this broke that low and closed below it. This was a lower low. And then this is really what has happened so far this month. I mean, it took this low, so the monthly chart is in a downtrend. And the weekly chart is in a downtrend. And of course, the daily chart is in a downtrend. These are my moving averages, the fan, and it's just been extremely brutal, as you all know. And it could be a very long summer, but there is always hope on both sides, as I showed you with these groups here. If you're looking for short-term trades or looking for low-risk trades, you can come into these groups. And like I said, I will make a video about these low pivots. I don't know if I'll get around to it over the weekend, but there is a way to take a group of stocks like this and look for low-risk entry points. You have to make sure that you're on the intraday. These filters work like this. There's an end-of-day filter, so you can prospect at night, but this same filter is on the intraday, so these same stocks are going to show up in the intraday scan, and you just look to see if they're following through. We know that all of these stocks are up because I'm still in that smart group that I just ran, looking for stocks only that are up, but you want the intraday because you want to see the percentage gain. So I'll just go down here. Let's do here's one I called VPA bullish candles. Either a VPA flag or a bullish candle has to appear on the low pivot to form the low pivot, and then you can see if they're following through. Let's just bring up a chart. Here's the low pivot, as I explained. Cheap stock, but it's a low pivot and it works. Here's another one. Low pivot, gap up, took out the high. That would be a confirmed buy, but here's a cheater buy right here at the open. Even in these terrible markets, you can find stocks like this. Maybe not yesterday when everything was getting hammered, but on a turnaround day, at least a short-term turnaround, these opportunities do appear. Thank you for listening. Have a good, long 3-day weekend and a safe weekend. Remember, if you're using my files, I want you to delete my warehouse. I would delete the warehouse and the chart files and then install the add-on to make sure you get these latest low pivot scans.